It was a crisp autumn evening in 2005 when Daniel Harper, a young man from New York City, mysteriously disappeared. He had been walking through a quiet alley just a few blocks from his apartment when he vanished without a trace. Security footage showed him entering the alley, disappearing around a corner and never reappearing. The investigation that followed was thorough, yet despite months of searching, the case went cold and Daniel was declared missing. His family clung to the hope that one day he would return, but as time passed, that hope dwindled. Years went by and life moved on. Daniel's face remained on missing person reports, his story becoming one of New York's most eerie unsolved mysteries. Then, in 2020, something incredible happened. Daniel Harper, looking exactly as he had the day he vanished, walked back into the same alley from which he disappeared, as if no time had passed at all. It was exactly 15 years later, but Daniel was unchanged. His clothes, his face, his hair, all exactly the same. The world had aged, but Daniel hadn't. Confused, he looked around, his eyes wide with disbelief, not recognizing the modernized city around him. Pedestrians noticed him standing there, and within minutes, someone called the police. When they arrived, they couldn't believe their eyes. They questioned him, and he seemed disoriented, asking what year it was. He looked at his watch. It read 8:47 p.m., the exact same time as when he had disappeared. His watch hadn't aged, nor had he. When the officer told him it was 2020, Daniel was stunned. His voice cracked as he asked, "Where's everyone I knew?" What happened? The police didn't have an answer, but they knew one thing. He was the same Daniel Harper who had vanished all those years ago. They ran his fingerprints and compared his DNA. It was an exact match. The authorities were baffled. They took him to the hospital for testing, hoping to find some explanation. But they found nothing. His body had not aged a day. All of his medical records were the same as when he went missing. His blood work, his DNA, his dental records, everything was identical. Even stranger, his mind showed no signs of being affected by the missing years. His memories were intact, or so it seemed, but when doctors tried to investigate further, something odd happened. Daniel's memories of his life were hazy, almost distant. He would tell stories of his childhood and recent events, but he seemed utterly confused by anything that had occurred in the past 15 years. His memory was stuck in 2005, as though time had frozen for him. Hypnosis was the next step. It was under hypnosis that Daniel began to describe something deeply unsettling. He talked about a blinding white room, a space with no edges, no corners, just an expanse of light so pure it made his eyes ache. He described shadowy figures standing in the distance, not moving, but somehow watching him, their faces impossible to discern. He felt a sense of coldness, of being trapped in a moment, unable to escape. The figures communicated with him, but not through words. They spoke directly into his mind, a cold, chilling presence that made his skin crawl. They told him, "Not yet," as though they were waiting for something. He saw a massive countdown clock in the room, the hands moving in reverse, ticking backward, slowly counting down to 0. The figures seemed to be aware of the clock and, in some way, tied to it. The moment the clock reached 0, Daniel's memories would blur, as if reality itself was altering in real time. But as he tried to remember more under hypnosis, something strange happened. His mind would shut down, as if a force beyond his control was keeping him from remembering. The further the investigators pushed, the more it seemed as if Daniel's memories were blocked or erased. Doctors were stunned. His brain activity seemed normal, but at certain moments it spiked erratically. There was a pattern, but no one could explain it. Some hypothesized that his brain was trying to protect him from something he wasn't meant to understand. As the investigation deepened, a few startling theories began to surface. Was Daniel a victim of time travel? Had he somehow slipped through a tear in the fabric of time and been transported to the future? Some conspiracy theorists believe Daniel had accidentally stepped into a wormhole, a natural time anomaly that had thrown him forward in time, leaving him stuck in the past. If that was the case, how could he have returned without aging, without any physical evidence of the passage of time? But others weren't so sure. Another theory suggested that Daniel had entered a parallel universe, one that existed in tandem with our own, but was slightly different. Perhaps in this alternate reality, Daniel had stayed the same, while the world continued to age and evolve around him. This theory raised even more questions. If this was the case, had Daniel truly returned to his original world, or had he come back?